Uh, can someone tell me that I'm audible and visible? Right. So we'll start with another editorial reading today. Hey everyone, my name is Akshat Agarwal, and I'm a former student of Clat Possible. And right now I am sitting in my hostel room at NLS. Right. So I think we should get into it. So we're just gonna go by the same drill. I'll display the paragraph that you have to read before you, and you all let me know once you're done. So we'll start in 5 minutes. Right. So here we have an article from the Indian Express. Could you all just let's just start with the first paragraph from here, and let me know what you guys make of it. And once you're done reading it, just text me in the chat box. Right. So I'm assuming you are done reading the passage. Yeah. So so as if you remember from our last discussion as well, we had concluded that usually uh, the first paragraph of any passage, it it basically sets the tone, and moreover gives you the main theme what the author is going to talk about. However, it's not necessary that that will be the main point of the author. So just keep this in mind. So you can conclude here that uh, the author is talking about the demise of Queen Elizabeth, and mainly she's talking about how everyone has reacted to it, right? So, and now here is what something that you can focus on. She wants to know why is everyone so obsessed with the funeral of the queen, and from this line you can conclude that this is what the author is going to talk about, right? So apart from that, it is mainly some factual information here, and now we can move on to the next paragraph. So once you're done reading this paragraph, let me know. Okay, so to answer Rudraksh here, uh, So when you see a passage and when it's divided into different paragraphs, just make a mental note of what each paragraph is talking about. Right. So let's say the first paragraph that we came across in this passage was basically setting the tone, like what is the author investigating. Later on, we'll move on. We'll realize what each paragraph actually means. So try to focus on which paragraphs are giving you factual information, which paragraph is basically giving you what the main point of the author is. That way, it will basically give you some roadmap about how to locate an answer. That is basically for the specific detailed questions. And coming to inference-based questions, the best technique is to eliminate the options. Some of the options will be way too extreme, and some of the options will be way too narrow. So if you try to do that, then you'll be able to answer inference-based questions better. Right. So what do you make of this paragraph? I hope you guys are done reading this. The second paragraph. Yeah. So this is again, the author is talking about how people have reacted to her funeral and how everyone's a part of the rituals. Now, one thing to note here is this line. So, what I'm basically trying to tell you here is that from the whole passage, from the whole paragraph, there's one line which gives you the crux of that paragraph. And it basically tells you what the author is going to do in the rest of the passage. Now, there's a lot of significance attached to this line that even those who do not play any formal role in the proceedings will all follow their own rituals. So this is what the author is going to talk about, how everyone is so much fascinated by the rituals associated with any event, not even the queen in general. So keep this in mind and then read further on. And just let me know if there's a meaning or something that you don't understand. Just you can comment that down in the chat box. Right, just one more point here. Yeah, so there's this line which says everything was and will be ritualistically choreographed. What do you make of it? So what the author here is saying is that this whole scenario where the queen's funeral is going on, everything has been decided how it's gonna go about. So this ritual, it is well choreographed. We all so when she says that from the point of view of the announcement of a death to her funeral, everything is decided by the rituals that are followed. So again and again, the author is stressing on the ritual importance, and from this we can gauge that this is what she's gonna talk about. So in any passage, the author might begin from a specific instance. Like from here, the author starts from the instance of the queen's funeral, but the author is going to talk about a major theme, and the theme here is the ritual importance. So keep this in mind, and then read the next few paragraphs. Right. So coming to the third paragraph, read it and let me know when you're done. Right. So in this uh, in this paragraph, what the author is saying is that how uh, all that's happening, it feels so scripted. It's as if we are all a part of this and we're going with the script. So the author mentions that this is not just restricted to the United Kingdom. It is also seen in all the realms of the British Empire. And the author also questions that how is it possible that so many people are so well coordinated and everything happens just like that, as if everyone knows what they're supposed to do. This is again the ritual part of the that the author is talking about in this paragraph, and a lot of references have been made to uh, script by Gilbert and Sullivan with additional music by Edward Elgar. So you'll come across a lot of such passages which make these allusions to some other author or some other artist. You don't necessarily have to know which artist is being talked about. Just get the main part, that why is the author mentioning uh, these people? Because the author wants to assert that this entire ritual regarding the funeral of the queen is somewhat like a script. That's all you need to know from this paragraph. Moving on. So now this is a very important paragraph. I'd like you to stress on this. And notice now how the author is transitioning from firstly from specifically restricting herself to the United Kingdom, and now she's going to move on to other countries. So this is how the authors basically move on from a specific idea to a general idea. So just read this paragraph and let me know when you're done. Uh, so after reading this paragraph, if I ask you, why is the author referring to the United States? Why is the author referring to France, to DRC, to Russia, to North Korea? What is the objective of the author to bring in these countries? So this you need to understand in order to understand how the references that have been made to all these countries, they basically strengthen the main argument of the author. So does anyone have any answer to that? Why is the author doing this? Like earlier, she was focusing on the United Kingdom, and now she's focusing on United States and all the rest of the countries. Why is that so? No. So the reason why the author is doing that is focus on this line and you'll get your answer. That there are part, yes, that there are these rituals are quite commonplace. This idea of following the ritual in all the social situations, it's a part of the routine elsewhere as well. So that is why the author is giving you so many examples. So from this, you may be asked, you might be asked some specific detailed questions, but just keep this in mind that this whole paragraph is basically it basically wants to strengthen this point of the author. That is all. Once you get this, you can move on to the next paragraph. Read till here. Right. So here in the first in this passage, we saw how the author is moving away from the United Kingdom, and she's trying to talk about how these rituals are very commonplace, and everyone is some or the other way associated with such grand rituals. Now she comes closer home. She comes to India. So she talks about how we have our own Republic Day, and all the rituals are associated with this. So this is what she's trying to comment on, that when we follow rituals, it is because we all know them so very well that we feel like we have to follow them. So that is why when in the starting she asks that why am I following this ritual? That why am I so fascinated with the with all this, with the rituals of the queen, her funeral? So this is how she answers them. I am fascinated by them because we all have our own rituals. So that is how you connect different paragraphs in the same passage. So do not view each paragraph as a separate entity. That would confuse you when you get down to inference questions, let's say, or the main point questions, because these kind of questions have been formed keep in mind the entire passage. If you stick to just one paragraph in order to answer them, it won't be the correct answer. So, and now this line, as you can see, we have indigenize the meeting retreat with our traditional numbers. So all this basically points to the fact that we, even us Indians, we are so associated with rituals. And now the author is going to move. She's going to talk about something very personal here. So let's read this and let me know if you have any questions. Right. So to answer Rudraksh here, I would say that when you're reading a passage, consciously keep in mind what the previous paragraph was talking about. So when you move from one paragraph to the other, you have an idea that, okay, this paragraph was talking about this thing. And so the next paragraph is going to talk about something similar, or it's going to advance the idea of the author. And this is a practice which you have to do while reading any passage. Keep in mind what the author began with. The author began with the UK rituals, and understand what the author is coming to now. So that just you'll get proficient at it as much as you practice. because time constraint in the exam of CLAT is a major issue, and the better you strategize, the higher chances of success are. Right. So let me know if you're done reading this paragraph. Personally, you can underline if you want to. You can underline the main words, right? But don't spend too much time on that as well. You can make simple markings or something, but don't write too much while reading the passage, because that will eat your time. Right. So now notice how the author moves throughout the passage. First, she talks about the UK, then about different countries, then she talks about India, and now she's giving you a personal account of the rituals which are associated with her family. So now now does anyone can someone give some synonyms for the word epitome? And such things would be expected of you. So if you encounter a particular word which you feel like the questions may ask you, underline that. Okay. Right. Perfect example. Correct. So here notice how the author is talking about her parents and how rituals were associated not just with major political activities, they were also associated with the personal activities of the people. Now, uh, tell me about this final few lines of the passage. Yeah, that's a good question. Does anyone know what an expatriate is? It's quite you come across this term quite a lot. No, so an expatriate is basically someone who's living away from their home country, not a native person. So when it says that an expatriate British expert's wife, so basically it's telling you that this wife who's actually British is living outside India. That's all. Yes. So what this line basically tells you is that it's basically a satire on how people associate themselves with the royalty. So he mentions how the wife would never wash her hand because the prince had shaken them. This basically tells you how, connecting it to the main idea of the author, how rituals are so embedded in us that we make our lives the be all and end all of rituals. So this is how the author has moved on from giving you the examples of rituals in the UK, then from other countries, and now she's come down to her family. Now we move on to the last paragraph. Usually it happens that the author reveals her main point in a very concise manner in the last paragraph. But despite that, keep in mind that when you're answering questions such as the main point or an inference question, you have to take the entire paragraph or the entire passage into account. So just read this last paragraph and then we'll be done. Right. So now here you get your answer to the question that the author asked herself, that why am I associating myself with all this ritual ceremony and all? Why am I so fascinated with what's going on in Britain? It is that this celebration of ceremonies is a part of our lives. So this is where her main point technically ends. But then there's something else that the author mentions. So now you can understand that within the passage itself, the tonality of the author changes. So before this, the tone was so in this passage, in this paragraph, the tone was quite reminiscent. She was being very personal. She was talking about how her parents performed their worships and all. And here, the tone becomes a bit critical. She's being acerbic. So this also happens that when you're answering a tone question in the passage, keep in mind that the tonality of the author changes again and again. From the first paragraph, it will be different. From the second paragraph, it will be different. And now in the last paragraph, it has completely changed. So when you're answering the tone question, that is why in the last class also I mentioned that you answer a tone question by eliminating the options. That is the best way to do it. So this basically brings us to the end of the editorial. Now, I want you to look at the title of the editorial and understand why it's so. So basically, what happens is whenever you read an editorial, this is the title that's been given, and there's a line. This states the main point of the author. So what I'm trying to tell you is that whenever you pick up an editorial from the Hindu or whatever, don't read these two things. Skip to the text, read the text, and write down what you think is the main point of the author. And then read this small line and check how accurate you are. That's one method of basically gauging how well you're able to understand what the author is trying to say. So from this line, you can very well conclude how the author talks about the Queen's celebrations. Then she talks about Republic Day, just to tell you that all these ceremonies and rituals are a part of our daily lives. So this is how you can practice basically how to take out the main point out of a passage. Your reading time depends, Rudraksh, it depends on you. What I would advise is that when reading a passage, you focus on what the author is trying to say in one paragraph. So let's say in this line, read this quickly and don't focus too much on the factual details. This you don't have to remember that the Queen died on September 8th and something like this. So all this you can skip, and the coverage of the Prince Charles 1981. This only becomes relevant when the author asks you a specific the question paper, it asks you a specific detailed question, right? But apart from that, while reading the passage, don't lose yourself too much on the details. And even here, so when she's talking about the new prime minister, how she also ended her official monitor on God Save the King, this is also not exactly relevant to her main point. So when reading a paragraph or a passage, learn how to skim through the lines. You don't have to read each and every word consciously. So, and in this paragraph particularly, she mentions how rituals are routine. They're well placed. Now, it's up to you. You can, if you want, you can skip through this when she's giving you the examples of the United States and Russia, PRC, North Korea, because these are very specific examples. And that's how you can basically improve your reading speed. Now coming to your point, Lalit, right? Yes, that could be. So when the author says that this love for a ceremony that is stamped into our DNA, she is trying to imply how years of colonialism as well have something to do with it, but that is not just the main thing to focus on here, because the author also talks about how these rituals, this practice of following rituals, is not just focused on Indians. It is also present in all the different countries as well. So the broader point of the author is that how all these ceremonies, all these rituals, they become a part of our daily lives, and how we feel obligated to follow them and be fascinated by them. So, and yes, in some way, the author is also criticizing the colonial ancestors as well, when she, from her last points, where she mentions that I have two questions, two rituals which the Britishers have not yet fulfilled. So I think that is how you should go about reading an editorial. And if there are any other questions in general pertaining to RC and CR sections, let me know. So I think that's it for the day. I hope I'll be able to take a few more sessions on basically how to read editorials and how to answer questions on that basis. So I think I'll see you guys soon, and take care. All the best.